Aurora Bennett had closed billion-dollar deals without blinking. Yet the sight of a father asking for a single spoonful of soup for his starving daughter nearly shattered her. At 7:42 p.m., the neon sign of Sea Glass Diner flickered against the misty air drifting in from the Port Arlen harbor. The smell of fried cod, old wooden booths, and warm bread filled the shabby little room, nothing luxurious, nothing curated. It was the kind of place where no one cared about your shoes, your name, or your bank account. A sanctuary built out of peeling paint. Aurora pushed the glass door open with her shoulder, her son Finn tugging at her sleeve. "Mama, can I get the big fries? The curly ones?" "You can choose anything you want," she said, brushing a blonde curl from his forehead. No one in the diner recognized the woman beneath the oversized gray hoodie. No one guessed she was Aurora Bennett, the elusive billionaire behind Helios Capital, the woman half the financial world tried, and failed, to predict. Tonight, she was only Finn's mother, exhausted after a week of endless negotiations, wanting nothing more than one quiet meal with her son. They took the booth near the window, the one with tape covering a tear in the cushion. Finn climbed in happily, swinging his feet. Across the diner, the door chimed again. 2 figures entered, a man and a little girl who couldn't have been older than 5. The man hesitated as if deciding whether he should even be here. He wore faded jeans, a washed-out flannel shirt, and carried an old canvas backpack with a fraying strap. His brown hair was tied into a low, messy bun. His eyes were tired, beautiful but tired. At his side, the little girl clung to his hand. She was small, too thin for her age, wrapped in a pale yellow jacket with sleeves far too long. Dark curls fell around her cheeks, and her big brown eyes searched the room cautiously. Aurora noticed the way the man scanned the diner, not for a free table, but to assess if this place was safe, if they were allowed, if anyone would stare. He approached the counter. "Excuse me," he said quietly. "May I have just a spoon of soup? Any soup you have. For her." Aurora's breath caught. A spoon. Not a bowl. Not a cup. A spoon. The server blinked, then awkwardly ladled a small scoop into a cup and handed it over. "Thank you," the man whispered, voice cracking. He guided the little girl to an empty booth in the corner, farthest from everyone. He slid the cup toward her. "Here, Luna, just a little to warm your stomach. Daddy will cook when we get home." Luna nodded obediently, though her eyes kept drifting toward the tables filled with fries, burgers, and warm bread baskets. Aurora watched silently. Finn did too. He paused mid-chew, a fry half lifted in his hand. "Mama," he whispered. "Yes, sweetheart?" "That girl, she's hungry." Aurora followed his gaze. The man, young, maybe early 30s, was pretending to talk lightly, telling a quiet story to distract his daughter from her hunger. His smile was soft, but his shoulders were tight with humiliation. Luna took tiny sips from the spoon, as if afraid to waste even a drop. Finn tugged at her sleeve. "Mama, can I share my food with them?" Aurora's heart tightened, not from pity, but from pride. The kind that strikes a parent speechless. She rested her hand on Finn's cheek. "You can do something even better," she said. "Invite them to eat with us." Finn's eyes widened. "Really? Really?" He didn't wait. He hopped out of the booth and ran toward the father and daughter. "Hi," he chirped. They both looked up, startled. Luna blinked shyly. "Hi." Finn grinned. "Do you want to eat with us? My mom said it's okay." The man froze. "What?" he whispered. Finn pointed at Aurora, who had already risen from her seat and was walking toward them with gentle steps.
"Sorry," Aurora said softly. "My son can be enthusiastic, but if you don't mind, would you join us for dinner?"
The man's face flushed with embarrassment.
No, thank you. We can't."
"Mama," Finn interrupted urgently, "I can show Luna my superhero card." Luna's eyes sparkled for a moment before she quickly looked away, as if not allowed to hope.
"Daddy,"
she whispered. The man swallowed hard. His pride was at war with his love for his child. Aurora crouched slightly to meet his eyes.
"It's not charity," she said quietly. "It's just dinner. And the kids seem to like each other."
He searched her gaze for judgment, for hidden motives. He found none. He exhaled slowly.
"All right," he whispered. "Thank you."
Finn clapped. Luna's face lit up like a lantern. The children ran ahead. The man adjusted his worn backpack and stood up. Aurora walked beside him.
"I'm Aurora," she said warmly. "This is Finn."
He nodded once. "Jonas," he replied, "and my daughter, Luna." When Jonas reached Aurora's table, he hesitated again, clearly uncomfortable taking a seat at someone else's expense. Aurora only smiled at him with a calm, steady kindness.
"Please,"
she said, gesturing to the booth. He finally sat, slowly, carefully, as if afraid he might break something. Aurora waved to the server.
"Could we get 2 full meals and a hot chocolate for the kids?"
The server nodded and hurried away. When the food arrived, steaming plates of grilled fish, fries, warm bread, Luna stared with round disbelief. She looked at her father for permission. Jonas gave the smallest nod. She ate, quietly at first, then faster, but still politely, as if afraid it might disappear. Finn slid a superhero card toward her. "Look, this one punches meteors." Luna gasped. "I've never had a card before." "Then you can keep it," Finn said matter-of-factly. Jonas looked down, blinking away something suspiciously close to tears. Aurora nudged the fries toward him. "They're better while hot." Jonas hesitated, then took one, slowly, as if accepting it meant stepping into a world he wasn't sure he belonged in.
"Thank you,"
he murmured.
"No need," Aurora replied. "We all need help sometimes. Tonight it just happens to be your turn."
Jonas looked at her with quiet astonishment. And in that moment, between a billionaire hiding inside a hoodie and a father who had once built furniture with his bare hands but now struggled to buy dinner, something shifted. A bridge formed. Small, uncertain, but real. Aurora didn't know that this simple meal would be the first step into a story she could no longer control. And Jonas didn't know that accepting it would pull them both into a tide neither wealth nor pride could stop. But that night, in a rundown diner by the sea, as 2 hungry children laughed over a superhero card, the world quietly changed course for 4 people who needed each other more than they knew. Morning light arrived quietly in Port Arlen. Not bright, not bold, but soft and salt-tinged, seeping in through gaps between buildings and the distant hum of fishing boats. It was the kind of morning Jonas Hale had learned to move through without complaint, without noise, and without expecting much. He woke before the alarm. He always did. Not because he was well rested, he rarely was, but because years of survival had carved an instinct into him. Wake up, work, keep going. He sat up on the thin mattress, rubbed the stiffness from his neck, and glanced toward the small figure curled in the next bed. Luna. Her little hand clutched her worn, stuffed rabbit, its ear half detached, its fur patchy. She was still wearing the faded yellow pajamas he had mended 3 times. The blanket kept slipping off her feet. He tucked it back gently, brushing a curl from her cheek. She smiled in her sleep. Jonas let out a slow breath. If I can give her even one good day, it's worth everything. He stood, careful not to wake her, and moved to the kitchenette. A single counter, a rusted stove, and a sink that groaned whenever he turned the handle. He opened the fridge. A nearly empty carton of milk. 2 eggs. A slice of cheese that had seen better days. It would have to do. He cracked 1 egg into a pan, whisking it with a splash of water to make it stretch. He'd done this for so long he barely tasted the difference anymore. A soft voice floated from behind him. "Daddy, you're up?" He turned. Luna sat at the table, hair sticking up adorably, rubbing her eyes. "Morning, sweetheart." He plated the small scrambled egg portion. "Eat while it's warm." "What about you?" she asked immediately, the question she asked every morning. "I'll eat later," Jonas lied smoothly, the way he always did. Luna accepted the answer, though she eyed him with the intuition only children of hardship possess. As she chewed, she mumbled, "Last night was fun. Finn is funny." Jonas smiled despite everything. "Yeah, he is. And his mom is nice." Jonas stiffened just a little. "She is." He remembered Aurora's eyes, clear, steady, unafraid to look directly at someone's pain without flinching. He remembered the way she moved with quiet confidence, even when she was doing something as simple as sliding a basket of fries closer to him. There had been no pity in her voice, no forced sweetness, just sincerity. Dangerously easy sincerity. Jonas shook himself. He didn't have room in his life for distractions, especially not ones that came wrapped in beauty and power and impossible kindness. He checked the clock. He'd need to drop Luna off early at Ms. Kerrigan's apartment, the retired librarian who watched Luna when Jonas went out searching for work. Then he'd start his daily rounds, hardware stores, small carpentry gigs, cleaning jobs, anything that paid in cash. And he prayed someone, anyone, needed help today. Across the city, sunlight touched the penthouse windows of the Bennett residence, turning the glass faintly gold. Here the morning moved differently. Quieter carpets, warmer lights, the scent of freshly brewed espresso drifting through the air. Aurora sat at the edge of the bed, hair damp from the shower, scrolling through her inbox. 47 unread emails. 3 missed calls from the Helios investment team. A flagged message from her attorney. But her mind wasn't on any of it. It was still at that diner. She kept seeing Jonas's eyes, soft brown, worn at the edges by exhaustion, and the way he had hesitated before accepting her invitation, as if kindness were a dangerous thing. Most people feared her because of her wealth. Jonas seemed to fear her despite it, and that unsettled her in a way she didn't want to examine yet. A pair of small feet padded into her room. Finn climbed onto the foot of the bed, hair rumpled, still half asleep. "Mama, what are you thinking about?" "You look serious." Aurora closed her phone and managed a gentle smile. "Nothing too serious, love. Come here." He crawled closer and leaned against her. "Do you think Luna will come to the park today?" he asked. "I don't know," Aurora answered honestly, "but I hope so." Finn nodded solemnly, then added, "Jonas looked tired. We should bring extra snacks, maybe sandwiches." Aurora chuckled. "You're a thoughtful little man." Finn puffed his chest proudly. "Luna is my friend now, and friends share food." Aurora tousled his hair.
If only everything in adulthood could be as simple as Finn made it sound. After dropping Luna at Ms. Kerrigan's door, Jonas began his rounds. He walked block after block, old storefronts with peeling paint, construction sites where he checked if they needed day labor, small businesses that sometimes hired him to fix shelves or patch walls. The salty wind whipped at his jacket, carrying the smell of seaweed and diesel from distant fishing boats. By noon, he had heard the same line from 5 different places. "Sorry, not today. Maybe next week. We're short on hours." Each rejection hit harder than the one before. He paused outside a hardware store, leaning against the wall, rubbing the ache in his temple. "Rent is due in 2 weeks. I don't have enough." He closed his eyes, breathing slowly to steady himself. It was in moments like this that he felt the weight of raising Luna alone. Every missed job, every bill, every unexpected setback, there was no one else to carry any piece of it. Just him. Just his 2 hands. He pushed away the fear and kept walking. By late afternoon, Jonas returned to Ms. Kerrigan's building. Luna burst out of the door, arms open wide. "Daddy!" He lifted her, inhaling the scent of crayons and cereal in her hair. "Ready for the park?" he asked. She nodded vigorously. The park overlooked the harbor, with seagulls perched on lampposts and children running along the sand-colored pathways. Usually, Jonas felt calmer here. Today, his mind was a storm. As they stepped onto the grass, Luna suddenly gasped. "Finn!" Finn was already sprinting toward her. "Luna!" The two collided in a hug that nearly knocked them both over. Aurora stood a few steps behind, hands in her coat pockets, her hair tied back in a loose knot. Jonas froze. Aurora turned to him, her smile gentle but searching. "Hi." "Hi," Jonas replied stiffly, unsure what to do with his hands, with his voice, with the sudden rush in his chest. He hadn't expected to see her again so soon. Aurora gestured to the bench. "Would you like to sit?" "I brought too many sandwiches, apparently." He hesitated. Then Luna tugged his sleeve. "Daddy, please?" He exhaled. "Okay." They sat on the bench, careful distance between them at first, watching the kids chase each other across the field. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Aurora said quietly, "You work incredibly hard. I can see it." Jonas stiffened. "It's nothing." "It's not nothing." He swallowed. Her voice wasn't pitying. It was simply honest. He hated how much that honesty affected him. Aurora turned to him, her expression soft but unflinching. "Jonas, if you ever need anything," he cut in quickly, "I don't take handouts." Aurora nodded as if she expected that. "I didn't say a handout," she said. "I said anything." Something flickered between them then, fragile, unspoken, and terrifying. Before either could examine it, Finn shouted, "Luna fell!" Both adults stood at the same time. Their lives were about to intertwine more deeply than either could predict. Finn's shout sliced through the salty air. "Luna fell!" Jonas and Aurora rushed forward at the same moment. Luna sat on the ground near the rusted slide, her small palms scraped, her knees dusty with sand. She wasn't crying, but her lower lip trembled the way it always did when she was trying very hard to be brave. Jonas dropped to his knees. "Sweetheart, let Daddy see." Luna opened her palms. Thin red lines, a little blood. Nothing serious, just the kind of injury every kid gets when the world is made of cement and gravity. But Jonas's heart squeezed anyway. "I'm okay." "Daddy," she whispered, embarrassed. Aurora stepped in gently. "I have a small first aid kit in my bag. May I help?" Jonas hesitated for a heartbeat. Pride flaring, old wounds stinging.
then nodded. "If you don't mind." Aurora knelt next to him on the grass. The late afternoon sun brushed her hair, making it look almost copper. She opened her small kit and pulled out a disinfectant pad and a colorful bandage with tiny blue whales printed on it. "Luna," she said softly, "this might sting a little, but I promise it'll stop hurting soon." Luna nodded, looking more at Aurora's calm eyes than at the wound. Aurora cleaned the scrape with careful, practiced hands. Jonas watched her, something unfamiliar twisting in his chest. She didn't move like someone pretending to care. She moved like someone who had done this 100 times, with a child she adored. When Aurora placed the little whale bandage on Luna's palm, the girl whispered, "Thank you." "You're brave," Aurora replied. Luna smiled shyly and ran back to Finn, as if pain had already been forgotten. Jonas released a breath he didn't realize he had been holding. "You're good with kids," he murmured. Aurora shrugged lightly. "I've had practice." Her voice grew quieter. "When Finn was younger, he fell a lot. He still has faint scars on his knees, just like the ones his father used to have." Jonas looked at her. There was a softness in her face now, something untouched by wealth, unreachable by success, painfully human. And for the first time he realized, beneath the world's image of Aurora Bennett, there lived a woman who had lost something she still carried every day. Jonas cleared his throat. "Thank you for helping Luna." Aurora smiled, almost imperceptibly. "I'm glad she's okay." Silence settled over them. Not awkward, but tender, fragile, enough to unsettle both of them. After a moment, Aurora reached into her large canvas bag. "I brought snacks. Too many of them," she said, pretending nonchalance. Jonas didn't believe her for 1 second. Yet he also couldn't deny the rumble in his stomach, the ache in his hands, the heaviness in his chest. The familiar shame rose, ready to fight, but he pushed it down. Luna needed food. Pride could starve. Luna couldn't. Aurora laid out sandwiches wrapped in wax paper, 2 juice boxes, and a container of sliced apples sprinkled with cinnamon. She handed a sandwich to Jonas. "Eat," she said gently. He took it with stiff fingers. "Aurora, you don't need to—" "I know," she cut in softly, "but I want to." Something in her tone dismantled another small piece of his defenses. Jonas took a slow bite. It was fresh, simple, warm. For a moment, he let himself taste it without guilt. They watched Finn and Luna running across the grass, weaving between the seagulls, laughing as the wind tossed their hair. Kids didn't know the difference between rich and poor. They only knew kindness. "I haven't seen Luna laugh this much in a long time," Jonas said quietly. "She loves Finn," Aurora replied. "He talks about her constantly." Jonas's lips curved, barely. "She talks about him too." Aurora looked at Jonas then, really looked. The wind pressed the edges of her hoodie against her shoulders, and she studied his profile with a softness he didn't notice. "You're a good father," she said. Jonas went still. No one said that to him. No one. Most adults only told him what he lacked, what he couldn't provide, what he needed to fix, what he had failed to catch up to. But Aurora said it like a truth she'd witnessed, not a compliment she owed. A good father. He swallowed, suddenly finding it hard to breathe. "I'm just trying my best." "And that," Aurora replied, "is more than most people ever do." Jonas had to look away. His throat tightened, his eyes burned. He didn't want her to see how much those words pierced him. A wind picked up from the harbor. Shadows lengthened as the sun dipped lower, streaking the sky in muted pinks. Finn and Luna were now building something elaborate with sticks and shells, arguing about which one was the dragon cave and which was the way to space. Aurora's voice broke the quiet.
Jonas, do you have work today?
He froze. He hated this question, not because she meant harm, but because he feared the truth might shrink him in her eyes.
No, he said carefully. Not today.
Her brow furrowed.
Is it slow lately?
Sometimes. He tugged at a loose thread in his sleeve. He didn't tell her about the string of rejections. He didn't tell her about the late rent notice. He didn't tell her about the guilt that clawed at him every night. Aurora seemed to sense everything he didn't say.
Jonas, she murmured, if you ever need more connections for work, I know a few people in the city.
No. The word came out sharper than he intended. Aurora blinked. Jonas winced.
I mean, thank you. Really. But I can't. You can, she said softly. You just don't want to.
Jonas's jaw tightened. I don't want charity. And I'm not offering charity. Her voice was steady, warm, almost fierce in its sincerity. I'm offering opportunity. That's different. Jonas looked at her then, the woman who moved between worlds so different from his. He wondered how she could sit beside him without judgment, how she could see him without flinching at everything he lacked. He wondered what she wanted, and why that terrified him. Aurora cleared her throat gently, changing direction.
I won't push, she said. But if I come across something that fits, I'll let you know. Only if you want it.
He nodded stiffly.
Okay. Okay, she echoed, with a small smile.
The tension dissolved, leaving a fragile truce. The sky darkened into a deeper shade of blue. Street lamps flickered on, one by one. Children's voices softened as parents called them home. Finn and Luna ran back, breathless, cheeks flushed.
Daddy, look!
Luna held up a crooked stick structure.
It's a dragon house,
Finn added.
I made the roof so the dragon won't get wet.
Aurora laughed. That's very thoughtful. Jonas smiled, genuinely this time. It's perfect. As they packed up to leave, the wind from the harbor grew colder. Aurora zipped Finn's jacket, then glanced toward Jonas and Luna.
Same time next Sunday? She asked.
Jonas hesitated. Luna answered for him.
Yes,
she chirped. Finn cheered. And Jonas, tired, overwhelmed, afraid of wanting too much, found himself saying quietly,
yes.
Aurora smiled, a small, hopeful curve, as if she knew their lives had already begun to intertwine in ways none of them fully understood. The envelope waited exactly where Jonas left it, on the shaky kitchen table next to a half-dry coffee ring. It looked harmless, ordinary. But the return address said Harbor View Properties, LLC, and that alone made his stomach knot. He opened it slowly, as if time might cushion the blow. Your monthly rent will increase from $1,050 to $1,250. $200. $200 he did not have. The lines on the page wavered. He read them twice, then a third time, hoping the number would shrink. It didn't. He folded the letter carefully and placed it flat on the table, pressing his palm over it as if pressure could undo reality. The apartment around him buzzed with its usual tired sounds. The leaky faucet dripping, the fridge humming, the cheap wall clock ticking with a faint rattle. Outside, the world carried on as if nothing had changed. But everything had. He spent the afternoon searching for work, calling old clients, following up with people he hadn't spoken to in months, stopping by storefronts that sometimes hired him for small repair jobs. Everyone was sorry. Everyone was cutting back. Everyone said, maybe next month. By the time he picked Luna up from Ms. Kerrigan's, his head throbbed from doing desperate math on the back of an old envelope. Luna ran to him with a drawing gripped in her hands. 2 stick figures, one tall, one small, standing in front of a lopsided yellow house with a blue door. Above them, in crooked letters, "Me and Dad's home." "It's our house," she said proudly, "but I couldn't draw the stairs." He swallowed hard. "It's perfect." He didn't add the part that burned. "I don't know if we can keep it." Sunday arrived bright and deceptive, the sky clear as if bad news didn't exist. Crescent Park was already lively, kids yelling, seagulls swooping low, the grass shimmering under late morning sun. Finn spotted Luna first. "Luna!" 2 small bodies collided in a hug loud enough to turn heads. Aurora stood nearby on their usual bench, hands tucked in her jacket pockets, her hair in a loose braid. She looked relaxed in jeans and sneakers, no cameras, no assistants. She lifted a hand in greeting. "Hey," she said as Jonas approached. "Glad you made it." "Wouldn't miss it," he answered, though fatigue clung to his voice. The kids bolted toward the playground. Jonas and Aurora watched them go, their laughter echoing through the trees. "You look tired," Aurora said gently. "I'm fine." Too fast. She didn't push. Instead, she reached into a cooler bag at her feet. "We, made too many sandwiches again. Think you 2 can help us finish them?" Jonas's pride wanted to raise a wall, but he thought of the letter, the empty fridge, the numbers refusing to bend. He exhaled. "Only if you let me pretend I'm doing you a favor." Her smile widened with relief. "Deal." They called the kids over and unpacked lunch onto the grass. Sandwiches in neat wax paper, fruit slices sprinkled with cinnamon, cookies Finn nearly fainted over. Luna bit into her sandwich with delighted concentration. Jonas took one only after both kids had started eating. The first bite felt like someone warming a frozen part of him he didn't know had gone numb. "You didn't have to do all this," he said quietly. "I wanted to," Aurora said simply. "It makes Finn happy. And it makes me feel like I'm doing something real for once." Her voice held a softness he rarely heard from anyone anymore. Jonas studied her. People saw Aurora as the billionaire with skyscraper views and iron-spined confidence. But sitting on the grass, brushing crumbs off her jeans, she looked human, vulnerable in a way that made his chest ache. She turned to him. "Jonas, what's going on?" He froze. He should lie. He should tell her he was just tired, overworked. But the truth pressed too close to his ribs. "My landlord raised the rent," he said. $200 a month. Aurora didn't gasp. She didn't pity. She just absorbed the words quietly. "That's a big jump," she said. "It's a jump I can't make," he answered. "Clients keep leaving. People hiring someone cheaper. I worked every day last week and still fell short." He stared at the grass. "And if you can't pay it?" she asked softly. He shook his head. "I don't know." A breeze drifted across the park, carrying the scent of cut grass and hot pavement. The kids were laughing again. Finn showing Luna how to stack apple slices, Luna giggling so hard she nearly tipped over. Aurora's next words were careful but firm. "I know people," she said. "People who need reliable cleaning and maintenance help. Offices, clinics, studios. If I pass your name along—" "Aurora." His voice broke. "I don't want to be a charity case." "You're not," she said firmly. "You're my friend. And friends help each other find work, not handouts." That word, friend, hit him in a place that had been empty for a long time. "You'd do it for me," she added. He didn't hesitate.
Of course. Then let me do it for you. Her expression carried no judgment, only quiet, stubborn loyalty. She wasn't pitying him, she was standing beside him. He finally nodded. Okay, he whispered. Give them my number. Her smile was small, but warm. Good. The kids ran back, dirt on their knees, hair wild from the wind. Mama, next Sunday too? Finn asked breathlessly. Aurora looked at Jonas. If he's not tired of us, she teased. I don't see that happening, Jonas answered. Their eyes held, a moment longer than necessary, a moment neither of them dared name yet. That night, after Luna fell asleep clutching her stuffed rabbit, Jonas sat at the kitchen table again. The rent letter lay where he had left it. His phone buzzed. 3 messages from Aurora. A law office downtown needs weekly cleaning. Want me to pass them your number? Also a pediatric clinic and a design studio by the harbor. Say yes to whichever feels right. Or all. You choose. He looked toward the small bedroom. Sometimes bravery was quiet. Sometimes it was choosing your child over your pride. He typed back. Give them my number. All 3. Aurora replied almost instantly. Good. We'll figure the rest out. Together. Jonas leaned back, eyes closing. The future was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, he wasn't facing it alone. 3 days after Aurora sent the referrals, Jonas got the call. Then another. Then another. A law office wanted him twice a week. A pediatric clinic needed evening cleaning. A small design studio by the harbor asked if he could start Monday. 3 jobs, enough to survive if everything went perfectly. He said yes to all 3. He didn't tell Aurora immediately. He didn't want to look desperate, or grateful, or anything that might make him feel smaller. But that night, as he folded Luna's laundry on the couch, his phone buzzed. Aurora. Thinking about checking on you tomorrow. Don't hide. Also, Finn misses Luna. Also, I made too many muffins again. Despite himself, Jonas smiled. Maybe, just maybe, the world wasn't tightening around him as cruelly as before. On Saturday morning, Jonas woke before sunrise, nerves humming. Today was his first shift at the upscale law office downtown, one of the jobs Aurora had recommended him for. The building was 13 floors of glass, chrome, and money. Jonas walked inside wearing his cleanest shirt, carrying his old canvas bag. He could feel the receptionist's eyes flick over him, measuring him against the polished marble. "Cleaning staff?" she asked. He nodded. "Yes, ma'am." He was directed to the 15th floor, a newly renovated suite with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor. Sunlight spilled across furniture so modern it looked more like art than anything meant to be touched. He rolled up his sleeves and got to work. Vacuuming, dusting high shelves, polishing glass, scrubbing sinks until they gleamed. His hands moved automatically. Cleaning wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. Predictable. And today, he felt strangely proud. Not because of the job itself, but because someone had trusted him enough to take it. Because Aurora believed he deserved work that paid him fairly. He was just finishing the conference room when the door swung open behind him. A woman walked in wearing a navy suit, her heels tapping sharply against the polished floor. "Good, you're here," she said briskly, not looking at him. "Our investors arrive in 20 minutes. Make sure the bathroom sparkles and there are no streaks on the boardroom table. Ms. Bennett will be here shortly. She's very particular." Jonas froze. Ms. Bennett. Before he could process the name, he stepped back and bumped the metal trash bin. It clattered loudly. The woman frowned. "Everything all right?" "Yes,"
Jonas said quickly. I'm fine. But he wasn't. Because he knew that name. Aurora Bennett. The woman who shared sandwiches with him on Sundays, who tied her son's shoelaces on the grass, who said he was her friend. She was the same Aurora who owned half the harbor. The same Aurora whose company negotiated buildings like this. The same Aurora who would be walking into this office in 20 minutes. His chest tightened, breath catching in the back of his throat. He didn't belong here, not in this gleaming office, not in front of investors, not in the orbit of a woman whose world ran on power and precision. He wiped the sweat forming on his forehead and worked faster, scrubbing the conference table until his arm burned. He didn't want Aurora to walk in and see him like this, kneeling, sweating, polishing the very floors her partners walked on. He told himself it didn't matter, that he shouldn't care what she thought, but he did. Too much. By the time he finished, his heartbeat was dangerously fast. He grabbed his bag, planning to slip out before she arrived. He made it to the hallway. He almost made it to the elevator. Almost. But the sharp ding of the arriving elevator froze him. The doors opened, and Aurora stepped out. This wasn't the Aurora from the park. This wasn't the woman in a simple jacket with her hair in a braid. This was Aurora Bennett, the powerhouse. Her hair pulled into a sleek knot. Her suit tailored to precision. Her expression focused, steady, commanding. A tablet in her hand, a pair of executives behind her. She was discussing projections, timelines, market fluctuations, her voice low and confident as she swept through the hall with the grace of someone who owned the floor she walked on. Jonas pressed himself against the wall, praying she wouldn't look up. She didn't. Her eyes were already ahead, laser-focused on the meeting awaiting her. She walked past him without a flicker of recognition, and the truth hit Jonas like a blow. In her world, he was invisible. Just another cleaner. Just another pair of hands scrubbing the overflow of a life he had no access to. He felt his throat tighten. Pride, hot, humiliated, burned through him. He slipped into the stairwell before anyone could see him falter. Down 14 flights, his breath shaking on every step. By the time he reached the ground floor, his hands trembled with the effort of holding himself together. He stepped out into the cold, bright morning and walked until the building vanished from view. Then he stopped, leaned against a wall, and let a single tear escape. Not from weakness, not from poverty, from the sharp, shattering understanding that he had been naive enough to forget the difference between their worlds. He didn't answer Aurora's texts that evening, or the next, or the one after that. Aurora. Everything okay? Aurora. Did the office treat you all right? Aurora. Jonas? Please answer. He stared at the messages until his phone dimmed. Luna watched him from the doorway, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Daddy, are you sad? Jonas forced a smile. No, sweetheart, just tired. But he knew the truth. He was running, not from danger, from hope. Hope had tricked him into thinking Aurora saw him as an equal. Hope had let him imagine, just for a moment, that maybe he wasn't a stranger standing on the other side of her world. He put his phone face down on the table. He wouldn't go to the park on Sunday. He wouldn't answer her messages. He'd protect what little dignity he had left, even if it meant breaking something inside him. Luna tugged his sleeve. Daddy, can we still go to the park? Finn will miss me. Jonas closed his eyes. This was the part that hurt worst. I don't think we can today, he whispered. His voice cracked. Luna didn't understand, but she nodded quietly and went back to coloring. Jonas sat alone in the kitchen, the weight of two worlds sinking heavy on his chest. Worlds that were never meant to touch. And yet, somehow, he had let himself want what he couldn't have. The next Sunday arrived gray and windswept. Crescent Park looked the same as always, kids shouting, the whir of scooter wheels, the ocean breeze carrying the smell of salt and damp grass. But for Finn, something was wrong the moment he stepped out of the car. "Luna's not here," he murmured. Aurora forced a soft smile. Maybe they're running late. But deep down, she knew. They weren't coming. Again. This was the second week in a row. Finn kicked at the dirt, shoulders sinking. But she always comes. "I know," Aurora whispered, brushing his hair from his forehead. She tried calling Jonas again. The call rang once, twice. Straight to voicemail. Her stomach tightened. Not anger. Something closer to fear. Fear that she had somehow pushed too hard, said too much, misstepped without realizing it. Fear that she'd lost something she had barely allowed herself to want. That afternoon, Aurora stood alone in her kitchen while Finn napped down the hall. The countertops gleamed. The house was spotless. Too spotless. The quiet pressed in. She looked at the last text she'd sent Jonas. "Just checking in. Finn wants to see you both. Hope you're okay. Unread." She set her phone down, breath unsteady. She hated not knowing. She hated the cold silence that had replaced their easy back and forth. Most of all, she hated the feeling she couldn't quite name, a hollow ache behind her ribs. She tried to bury herself in work, opened her laptop, meetings, budgets, a new development proposal, all things she normally controlled with ruthless precision. But today, numbers blurred, and her focus slipped again and again. Finally, she closed the laptop. Enough. She grabbed her keys. If he wouldn't answer her, then she'd go to him. The hallway of Jonas's apartment building felt narrow, dim, and too quiet. A flickering ceiling bulb buzzed overhead. Aurora walked to the same worn door she had visited weeks before, the numbers 304 slightly tilted. She stood there a moment, steadying her breath. Then she knocked. No answer. She knocked again. A shuffling sound inside. Then quiet. Then the door creaked open. Jonas stood there. He looked different. Less sleep in his eyes, more weight in his posture, as if the week had carved sharper lines into him. "Aurora?" he said, startled. "Hi," she breathed. "I just wanted to check on you." He rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. "I'm fine." "You don't look fine." Jonas swallowed. "I'm just busy." "That's not true either." Silence stretched between them. "Can we talk?" Aurora asked softly. "Not a good time." "Jonas." "Aurora," he cut in gently, but firmly. "Please." His tone wasn't cold. It was tired, defensive, guarded in a way she hadn't seen since before the park, before the bench, before the shared sandwiches and quiet confessions. She took a small breath. "You disappeared," she whispered. "And I don't know why." Jonas looked away. "People like you." He stopped himself, jaw tightening. "Your world isn't mine." Something inside her tightened. "What happened?" she pressed. "What changed?" He hesitated. And that hesitation, the way he wrestled with it, told her the truth. Something had hurt him. Something connected to her. Then she remembered the law office, the meeting, her investors, the receptionist telling her cleaning staff arrived earlier this morning. Her heart sank. "Jonas," she whispered, "were you at the office on Thursday?" His silence was answer enough.
Oh.
Her voice softened, the realization dawning painfully.
And you saw me?
He still wouldn't look at her. Aurora stepped closer, not invading, inviting.
You think I didn't see you,
she said quietly.
But Jonas, I wasn't looking for cleaners. I was thinking about closing deals, placing investors, memorizing forecasts.
I know, he muttered.
No, she insisted gently. You don't. Because if I had seen you, I would have stopped, immediately.
He finally looked at her. There it was, hurt, humiliation, pride pulled thin and trembling.
You walked past me, he said in a low voice, like I didn't exist. Her throat tightened. Jonas, I didn't recognize you.
That's the point, he whispered. His voice wasn't angry, just sad.
Aurora's chest tightened in a way she wasn't prepared for.
I'm sorry, she breathed.
I'm so sorry.
He shook his head. It's not your fault. It's mine. For forgetting who I am. For thinking. He trailed off.
Thinking what?
She pressed.
That people from different worlds can meet in the middle.
Aurora stepped forward before fear could stop her.
Jonas, she said firmly, I never saw you as less. Not once. Not in the diner. Not in the park. Not on the phone. I don't care what job you do. I care about how you treat your daughter, how you make Finn laugh, how you listen, how you try even when life keeps knocking you down.
His eyes glistened.
Don't do that, he whispered. Do what? Make it sound like I matter. You do, she said simply. Silence fell again, but different now. Softer, charged, painful, but honest. Finally, a tiny voice came from inside the apartment. Daddy, is it Aunt Aurora?
Luna peeked around Jonas's hip, hair messy from a nap, clutching her stuffed rabbit. When she saw Aurora, her face lit up.
Aunt Aurora!
And just like that, air returned to the room. Jonas's shoulders sagged fractionally. Aurora knelt to Luna's level.
Hi, sweetheart. Finn misses you. I miss him too,
Luna chirped. Jonas closed his eyes, the fallout of 2 broken weeks pressing on him all at once. Aurora rose slowly.
I'll leave, she said. But please, don't shut me out like that again.
If I did something wrong, tell me. Let me fix it. He nodded once, almost imperceptibly.
And,
she added softly,
if the office made you feel small, I'm sorry. I should have seen you.
Jonas looked at her, really looked. A battle waged quietly behind his eyes. Then, in a voice barely above a breath,
Can we talk again later?
Aurora smiled, a small, hopeful curve.
Anytime.
She stepped back. Luna waved vigorously. Bye, Aunt Aurora.
Bye, sweetheart.
Jonas lingered in the doorway as she turned to leave. Something fragile, trembling but real hung between them. Not fixed, not broken. Just waiting. Just hoping. Just beginning again. 3 days passed before Jonas found the courage to text her. He rewrote the message at least 10 times before settling on the simplest version. Are you free this weekend? Maybe the kids could play? He hit send, immediately regretted it, sat on the couch gripping the phone like it might detonate. The reply came 3 minutes later. Yes.
Sunday?
We would love to.
And Jonas, thank you for reaching out. Thank you for reaching out.
He read the words twice, then once more, feeling something loosen in his chest, something he hadn't realized was clenched tight. Sunday returned with sunlight sharp on the water, a soft breeze sweeping across Crescent Park. The sea smelled like salt and possibility. Jonas and Luna arrived first this time. Luna's excitement was impossible to contain. She practically vibrated beside him, her little sneakers tapping the grass like a telegraph machine, sending joy into the ground. "Will Finn come soon? Will he? Daddy, will he?" Jonas smiled. "He'll be here any moment." He hoped so, not just for Luna, for himself. A small part of him feared Aurora might change her mind, or worse, regret letting him back in. But then, a familiar voice called out, "Luna!" Finn barreled toward them, arms stretched wide like he was launching into flight. Luna squealed and collided with him in a hug that nearly knocked both of them over. Aurora followed behind, jeans, white t-shirt, hair loose around her shoulders. Not the business titan, just Aurora. The woman who carried quiet storms inside her and sunlight in her laughter. "Hi," she said softly. "Hi," he answered. It was simple, but it felt like something inside them finally exhaled. The kids took off running the very second introductions were no longer required, leaving adults behind with no buffer. Jonas cleared his throat. "I'm glad you came." "I'm glad you asked," Aurora replied. A breeze lifted her hair. Jonas watched her tuck it behind her ear, a small motion, yet intimate in its familiarity. They settled on their usual bench, the one that now felt like neutral ground between two very different worlds. Aurora set a small cooler beside her. "I brought food again." Jonas huffed a soft laugh. "Of course you did." She nudged him with her shoulder, a small, warm gesture that startled him more than it should have. "I'm predictable that way." "Not predictable," he murmured. "Reliable." Aurora blinked, the word catching her off guard. For a woman accustomed to being admired, feared, envied, reliable hit deeper, quieter, more genuinely than any praise she usually received. "Thank you," she said softly. The kids were now attempting to build a rocket ship out of sticks and sand. Finn yelled instructions like a tiny general. Luna obeyed with absolute devotion. Aurora watched them with a tenderness that softened her whole expression. "It's been a long time since I've seen Finn this happy," she murmured. "Not since before his father died." Jonas didn't speak. He turned toward her gently. "He was sick?" he asked, careful not to pry too far. Her fingers twisted the edge of the cooler strap. "Car accident, 3 years ago. Sudden. No chance to say goodbye." A shadow crossed her features. Not fresh grief, the older, worn kind that lives quietly in someone's bones. "I'm sorry," Jonas said. She nodded, still watching Finn like he was the last remaining piece of a life she lost too soon. "He was only 2. For a year he asked if his dad would come home after work." Her voice thinned. "I didn't know how to explain death to a toddler. I still don't. Not really." Jonas understood too well. Children don't ask for explanations. They ask for answers parents can't bear to give. "Kids survive because their parents try," he said softly. "Even when we're exhausted. Even when we're terrified." Aurora let out a shaky breath. "Does it ever get easier? Doing it alone?" He thought about rent notices, empty fridges, sick days with no backup, and also morning hugs, Luna's drawings, their silly bedtime songs. "It doesn't get easier," he said, "but it gets worth it." Aurora's eyes glistened. She whispered, "You're a good man, Jonas?" He looked away, because hearing it still hurt in all the places he didn't expect. A sudden cry pierced the air. Luna! Jonas jumped to his feet instantly, Aurora right behind him. They reached the playground to find Luna sitting on the ground, clutching her ankle.
It's okay, Jonas said quickly, kneeling beside her. Finn hovered close, eyes wide. She slipped off the slide. I was going to catch her, but she went too fast. Aurora crouched down opposite Jonas. Sweetheart, can you move it? She asked gently. Luna winced, but nodded. It just hurts. Aurora touched Jonas's wrist lightly. Let me look? He nodded. Her fingers were careful but confident as she inspected the ankle, rotating it gently. No swelling yet, she murmured. Not twisted, just a sharp sprain. Luna sniffled. Does that mean I can't run? Only for today, Aurora smiled. She bandaged it from her kit, the same way she had done the day Luna scraped her palms. Jonas watched her work, noticing the balance of gentleness and certainty in her movements. She had a way of entering crises without letting them swallow her.
You really carry that kid everywhere? He asked. Aurora chuckled softly. Single mom habit. You never know when the world is going to fall on your kid's knees. He laughed, and the sound surprised them both. When Luna stood up, Aurora steadied her by the shoulders. You're brave, you know that? Luna nodded solemnly. Daddy says that too. Her words made Aurora's expression soften even more. Your daddy's right. Jonas felt warmth rise to his throat. Not pride. Something deeper. Something dangerously close to hope. They returned to the bench. Aurora laid out food. Garlic chicken sandwiches, small fruit cups, little chocolate muffins she claimed were accidentally overcooked. Luna and Finn dug in with immediate devotion. Jonas took a muffin. After a moment, he murmured, Aurora, I want to thank you. For what? She asked. Genuinely confused. He gestured gently at Luna, now happily chewing. For this. For caring. For not letting the last few weeks push you away. Her face softened. Jonas, people don't disappear on the ones they care about. Not if they can help it. His heart thudded. She didn't back away. She didn't look away. She simply held his gaze with quiet certainty. Then, in a low voice, she added, And I care, even if I shouldn't. Jonas's breath caught. Aurora. I know, she whispered. I know there are complications, differences, real ones. But when something matters, you don't pretend it doesn't. He didn't know what to say, so he didn't say anything. He just let the truth settle between them, warm and terrifying and real. The afternoon stretched golden across the park. The kids lay on the grass making shapes out of clouds. Jonas and Aurora sat shoulder to shoulder, close enough that their arms brushed whenever one of them breathed a little deeper. Neither moved away. When it was time to leave, Luna hugged Finn fiercely. Next Sunday? She asked. Finn nodded like the sun depended on it. Aurora turned to Jonas. Same time? He nodded. Same time. They walked to their cars. The kids climbed in. Aurora lingered, hand on the driver's side door. Jonas, she said softly, don't disappear again. He swallowed. I won't. She smiled, small, relieved, radiant, then whispered, Good, because losing you once was already too much. Jonas stood there long after she drove away, the wind brushing past him, the ocean humming nearby. For the first time in years, he felt like a closed door had quietly opened, and this time, he wasn't standing outside alone. By the following week, Jonas felt different. Not fixed, not whole, but steadier, lighter in the chest in a way he couldn't explain. The new cleaning jobs Aurora had arranged were still exhausting, but they gave him something he hadn't tasted in months. Stability. Even if fragile. Even if rented from uncertainty. But it was something. And for the first time in a long time, he woke on Saturday with the quiet knowledge that he could buy groceries without checking the price twice. He made scrambled eggs for Luna, fluffy, warm, a Sunday luxury they rarely had. She ate with a grin, swinging her legs under the kitchen chair. "Daddy," she said, cheeks full, "tomorrow is Sunday." "I'm aware," he teased, "and Sunday means Finn." "Yes," he smiled. "Sunday means Finn." Sunday meant Aurora, too. He didn't say that part aloud. Sunday noon arrived bright and crisp. Crescent Park shimmered with families, dogs, runners, the smell of distant barbecues drifting through the air. Finn and Luna found each other like magnets. Jonas and Aurora met near their usual bench. But something was different. Aurora's hair was up today, in a loose knot with strands falling free. She wore a soft blue button-down shirt and jeans, looking more like a woman on a quiet day off than a billionaire whose decisions shaped half the city. She gave him a smile, gentle, almost shy. "Hi." "Hi." They sat. A little closer than last time. Not touching, not obvious, but close enough that Jonas felt the warmth of her shoulder when the breeze shifted. They watched the kids chase each other near the swings. Aurora exhaled softly. "I missed this." Jonas looked at her. "Me too." She didn't hide her relief. For a moment, nothing dramatic happened. The kids laughed. A dog barked. Seagulls circled overhead. A small plane wrote an advertisement across the sky with trails of white smoke. Normal. Ordinary. But inside Jonas, something shifted. That rare, frightening feeling of wanting something he didn't know how to name. Aurora broke the silence. "Jonas, can I ask you something?" His pulse kicked. "Of course. Why didn't you tell me?" She kept her eyes on the kids. "About struggling? About the rent? About all of it?" Jonas swallowed. "Because it wasn't your problem." Aurora turned her face to him. "But I wanted it to be." He blinked, stunned by the honesty. She continued softly. "I can't stand the idea of you or Luna going through that alone." "Aurora?" "No, wait." Her voice trembled slightly. "I know you're proud. I respect that. I don't want to take your dignity. I never have. But friendship, real friendship, goes both ways." He looked away, breath shaky. "It's been a long time since someone cared like that," he admitted. "Same," she whispered. Their eyes met. Something warm and unspoken passed between them. Something deeper than the Sunday routine. Something dangerous but beautiful. The kids ran back, breathless. "Daddy! Aunt Aurora! Look! Look!" Luna held up a bouquet of tiny wildflowers, clover, tiny daisies, some weeds that only children believe are treasures. "I picked these for Aunt Aurora." Aurora lit up like the sun. "They're beautiful. Thank you, sweetheart." She knelt, letting Luna tuck the flowers behind her ear. Finn clapped proudly. Jonas watched, heart melting in slow, painful increments. This softness, this gentleness was why he struggled, because he was starting to care, more than he meant to, more than he should. And he didn't know what would break first, his pride or his fear. After lunch, Aurora surprised him.
Jonas, she said, wiping her hands on a napkin, would you like to come to my place next weekend? He froze. Your place? She nodded casually. Too casually. I thought the kids could have a play date at home. It's safer than the park, and warmer. And you could stay for dinner. His heart thudded dangerously. He imagined her world, the modern glass home on the hillside, the views overlooking the water, the quiet luxury of someone who had never worried about the price of rent. Aurora, I don't think... You don't have to say yes, she cut in gently. It's just a thought. He rubbed his hands together nervously. I'm not sure I'd fit in. You fit here, she said softly. He glanced at the grass under them. This is neutral territory. She tilted her head. So let's make dinner neutral territory too. Jonas looked at her for a long moment. I don't want your world to swallow mine, he whispered. Aurora's eyes softened in a way that disarmed him. Then let's build a place in the middle, she said. Something in his chest cracked open. It was the gentlest proposal he'd ever heard. Not romantic, not dramatic, not demanding. Just human. A bridge offered between two cliffs. He nodded slowly. Okay. Next weekend. Aurora's relief was unmistakable and stunning. She whispered, Thank you. Later that afternoon, clouds rolled over the park, turning the sky gray-white. Families packed up picnic blankets. Children complained about leaving. Wind whipped gently through the trees. Luna and Finn sat cross-legged, finishing the last chocolate muffin, making smudges on their cheeks. Aurora shook her head, amused. We need to wash them before we go. Jonas laughed. Them or us? Both, she said, smiling brighter than the sun. They gathered the kids, wiped chocolate off mouths and fingers, strapped them into their respective car seats. And then, standing by her car door, Aurora hesitated. Jonas, she said quietly, can I tell you something? Of course. She stepped closer, just a fraction. Enough that he could smell the citrus lavender scent of her hair. After my husband died, she whispered, I stopped inviting anyone to my home. Anyone. Not even friends from work. Jonas's chest tightened. Why? She looked at him with eyes full of a truth she'd never spoken aloud. Because letting someone into your home feels like letting them into your heart. The wind stilled. The air thickened. Jonas's pulse surged. And you're inviting me, he murmured. Yes, she whispered. I'm inviting you. He swallowed, throat tight. Then, I'll come. A small, shaky smile formed on her lips. Good. She stepped back, cheeks flushed, and opened the driver door. See you next Sunday. See you, he said softly. She drove away, her taillights glowing red in the dimming afternoon. Jonas stood alone in the parking lot for a long moment, Luna's hand warm in his. Daddy? She asked. Are we going to Aunt Aurora's house? He nodded. We are. Luna grinned, excited. Will she have toys? Jonas laughed softly. I think she'll have everything. But deep inside, somewhere tender, somewhere afraid, he knew the truth. Next Sunday wasn't just a play date, it was a threshold. And once he stepped through it, nothing between them would be the same. The next Sunday came with a kind of nervous electricity Jonas hadn't felt since he was a teenager waiting outside someone's house for the first time. Luna, on the other hand, had no such anxiety. She burst out of her bedroom wearing her best blue dress, the one with the tiny embroidered stars. Daddy! Daddy!
Aunt Aurora said we're coming today. We're coming today. Jonas managed a smile. Yes, sweetheart. We're going. His hands, however, wouldn't stop fidgeting as he buttoned his shirt. It wasn't new, but it was the cleanest he had. He even ironed it, though the iron sputtered more steam than heat. He kept asking himself, what if I look out of place? What if I embarrass her? What if her friends are there, or family? What if she regrets inviting me the moment I step inside? But another thought, quieter, stronger, kept pushing through. She asked you because she wanted you there. The drive up Hillside Drive was surreal. Each curve of the winding road revealed larger houses, sweeping modern builds with stone terraces, shimmering glass walls, polished steel gates. Jonas felt his stomach tighten with every turn. Then Aurora's house appeared, a modern two-story home of soft gray stone and warm wood with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the water. Sunlight scattered across its glass like it had been designed to hold light itself. Jonas exhaled slowly. "This is big," Luna whispered in awe. He forced a small laugh. "Yes, it is." Before he could stop his worries from spiraling, the front door opened. Finn flew outside like a missile. "Luna!" She squealed and ran to him, arms thrown around his neck. Aurora stepped out behind them. Jeans, a soft cream sweater, hair loose again. Not the billionaire in a tailored suit. Not the woman from the law office. Just Aurora. Warm. Calm. Beautiful in a way that reached the bones. Her smile when she saw Jonas wasn't polite or casual. It was relieved, like she'd been waiting for this. "Hi," she said breathlessly. "Hi," he answered, breathlessly too. She gestured toward the door. "Come in, please." Jonas stepped inside. He expected cold luxury, marble floors, stark walls, art chosen by decorators, not by heart. But her home was nothing like that. Warm wooden floors, bookshelves full of novels, not trophies, framed photos of Finn, baby pictures, toddler smiles, messy hair. A soft gray couch shaped by real use, an oversized window seat filled with pillows, a rug scattered with crayons and half-built Lego towers. It wasn't a mansion, it was a home. The air smelled like lemon, rosemary, and something baking in the oven. Jonas let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. "This is..." He searched for a word that didn't give away how overwhelmed he felt. "Nice?" Aurora's cheeks warmed. "Thank you. I... try." Their eyes lingered a moment too long. The kids' laughter broke the tension. "Daddy! Aunt Aurora has a pirate ship!" Luna pointed at the enormous Lego set on the floor. Aurora chuckled. "Finn made me build it with him. Shipbuilding is not my hidden talent." Jonas smirked before he could stop himself. "I'm sure you did fine." "You should have seen the mast," she whispered dramatically. "It leaned, like this." She tilted her hand. He laughed, really laughed, at the image, and she glowed at the sound. They settled in naturally. Finn and Luna started a drawing competition at the coffee table. Aurora brought snacks, carrot sticks, apple slices, tiny sandwiches cut into stars. Jonas pretended not to notice, but none of it was cheap. Organic fruit, good bread, fresh herbs. Aurora caught him noticing and said softly, "Don't overthink it. This is just how we eat, not a statement." His ears burned. "I know. It's just different." "Different doesn't mean better," she said gently. Her voice, steady, warm, made shame loosen its grip. An hour later, Aurora invited them into the backyard. Jonas hadn't expected a backyard view that looked like a magazine cover, terraced stone steps, blooming lavender bushes, and a panorama of the harbor stretching endless and blue. The wind rolled across the water. "You live with this view every day," Jonas murmured. Aurora nodded. "Sometimes I forget to appreciate it. Too busy. Too in my head." Jonas looked at her. "I get that." She didn't look wealthy here. She looked human. A woman who built walls not out of arrogance, but out of old grief. He turned his gaze back to the harbor. "When Luna was younger, I used to bring her to the docks. Cheaper than a playground. She liked the sound of the waves." "I like that," Aurora said softly. "That's real." He shrugged. "It's what we had." Her voice dropped lower. "What you had was love. That's more than most kids in rich homes get." He didn't know how to reply, so he didn't. They stood side by side, listening to the ocean breathe. Dinner was pasta baked with tomatoes, basil, and cheese that stretched into warm strings when lifted. The kids devoured 2 servings each. Jonas took one bite and nearly moaned. It was delicate, flavorful, better than anything he'd eaten in years. "You cooked this?" he asked, stunned. Aurora nodded, embarrassed. "I'm not good at many things, but I'm decent in the kitchen." "Decent?" Jonas shook his head. "This is incredible." She looked down at her plate, smiling. The kids chattered between bites, telling exaggerated stories, making spaghetti jokes, laughing with the unfiltered joy only children possess. And in the glow of the dining room light, listening to the soft clatter of forks and the rise-fall of laughter, Jonas felt something he hadn't felt in years. Safe. Not because her house was comfortable. Not because it was warm or clean or beautiful. Safe because something inside Aurora matched something inside him. A softness. A loneliness. A place where the world had once broken them. And now, maybe, a place where they were learning how to heal. When the meal ended, Aurora walked him and Luna to the front door. The kids hugged goodnight, tight and reluctant. And then it was just Jonas and Aurora. Close. Too close. The air between them hummed. "Thank you," Jonas said quietly. "For dinner. For today. For all of it." "I'm glad you came," she whispered. He hesitated. "I was scared." Her breath caught. "Of what?" "That I'd walk in here and see someone I didn't recognize. Someone too far above me." "And did you?" she asked gently. Jonas shook his head. "No, I saw you." Her eyes shimmered, soft, relieved, wounded, opening. "And I saw you," she murmured. Silence fell, charged, delicate, dangerous. She stepped a little closer, just enough that he could feel her warmth. Her voice trembled. "Jonas, I want you in my life. Not just on Sundays. Not just for the kids." His heart stumbled. "Aurora." He didn't know how to finish the sentence, but she did. "You don't have to say anything yet," she whispered. "Just don't walk away." He exhaled shakily. "I'm not walking away." She smiled, small, fragile, radiant. "Good," she whispered. Jonas turned to leave, then stopped, looked back, and said the words he'd held for weeks. "I'm glad you opened the door." Aurora's voice trembled. "So am I." Jonas and Luna walked down the stone steps toward the car. The sky deepened to violet. A breeze rolled off the water. Luna swung his hand happily. "Daddy," she whispered.
Aunt Aurora's house felt like home. Jonas's throat tightened. Yeah, he murmured. It did. Neither of them knew it yet, but tonight was the moment everything shifted. The moment two families stopped being separate. The moment a door, once closed for years, finally stayed open. The week after dinner at Aurora's house felt strangely unreal. Jonas worked his shifts, law office, clinic, studio, but something inside him was warmer, lighter. The weight he had carried on his shoulders for years no longer pressed so brutally. It didn't vanish, but it eased. Sometimes, in odd, quiet moments, mopping a hallway, wiping down desks, checking his phone, he caught himself remembering small things. Aurora's laugh in the kitchen, the way she tucked a flower behind her ear for Luna. How she said, "I want you in my life," and meant it. He'd never been wanted like that. Not for usefulness, not for pity. Wanted for who he was. But wanting her back? Letting himself believe he deserved her? That was harder. He wrestled with it all week. By Sunday morning, he still hadn't made up his mind. But life rarely waits for perfect timing. Aurora's house looked different today. Or maybe he was different as he pulled up to the driveway with Luna in tow. A warmth spread through his chest, a quiet, terrifying hope. Luna ran to the door before he even cut the engine. "Daddy, hurry!" He followed her, heart pounding. The door opened, and there was Aurora. Soft green sweater, hair pulled into a loose braid, bare feet on the wooden floor. Home. She looked like home. "Hi," she breathed. "Hi," he said, voice lower than intended. They stood in the doorway a moment too long until Finn appeared like a human firework. "Luna!" The two kids collided into a hug and tore off toward the backyard, laughter trailing behind them. Aurora stepped aside. "Come in!" He did, and the moment he crossed the threshold, something shifted inside him, quiet but certain. He didn't feel like a visitor anymore. He felt like someone returning. Aurora poured coffee for him in the kitchen. She handed him the mug, their fingers brushing for the briefest second, sending a jolt up his arm. They carried their cups to the window seat overlooking the harbor. The sky hovered in shades of pale blue and silver. The water shimmered beneath soft sunlight. The kids' voices echoed faintly from the yard. "Jonas," she said gently, "I've been thinking about us." He tensed. "Us?" "Yes," she said. "The way things have changed, the way it feels." He lowered his gaze. "Aurora, No," she interrupted softly. "Let me say this first." She set her mug down carefully. "When I lost my husband, I promised myself never to open my heart again. The grief was too much. The emptiness was unbearable. And for years, I built walls around myself so I wouldn't feel that kind of loss again." He said nothing, letting her words breathe. "Then I met you," she whispered, "and Finn met Luna, and suddenly the world felt alive again, like there was color I'd forgotten existed." Jonas swallowed hard. "Aurora." "I know we're from different worlds," she said, "but those worlds don't define us. What we feel does." He took a slow breath, staring down at his hands. "I'm scared," he confessed. She nodded. "I know. I don't want to hold you back, or make you regret being with someone like me." She frowned, hurt flickering across her face. "Jonas, you're not someone like anything. You're you. And I trust you more than anyone I've met in years." His heartbeat stuttered. "But what if people talk?" he whispered. "Let them. What if they judge me? They don't get a vote. What if I fail? What if I can't give you the life you deserve? Aurora reached out, and for the first time she took his hand, fully, firmly, without hesitation. You are giving me the life I deserve, she said softly, because all I've ever wanted was something real, something true, someone who sees me, not my money or my company. Her fingers tightened around his. You do. Every time. Jonas's breath shook. The wall he'd built, piece by piece, year after year, finally cracked. Outside, Finn screamed happily about a giant snail. Luna shouted, "Don't touch it, Finn!" A crash of plastic toys followed. Aurora laughed quietly. They sound peaceful. Jonas smiled. That's one word. Their laughter faded into a softer silence. A deeper one. A silence that waited for honesty. Aurora, he said, voice barely above a breath. I've wanted to tell you something. Her eyes warmed. Tell me. I think about you, he admitted. More than I should. More than I know how to handle. When you text, I can't help it. I smile. When you're near me, I feel at ease. And when I saw you at the office that day, he paused, throat tight. I felt like the ground opened, like your world was a sky I could never reach. Aurora's voice trembled. And now? Now? He lifted her hand to his lips, barely kissing her knuckles. I just see you. Her breath hitched. A tear gathered in her lashes, not from sadness, but from the fragile relief of being understood. She whispered, Jonas, I want you. Not your circumstances, not your past, not your paycheck. You. He exhaled, shaking. And I want you, he whispered. The words hung between them like a confession long overdue. Aurora's hand slipped from his and moved to his cheek, her thumb brushing the faint stubble there. Then let me in, she murmured. Let me stay. Jonas closed his eyes and let himself fall. He leaned into her touch, slow, afraid, trembling, and when he opened his eyes again, she was looking at him with a tenderness that broke something wide open inside him. He whispered, I'm here. And it was enough. They didn't kiss. Not yet. Some love stories aren't rushed. Some are built like houses, steady, brick by careful brick. Instead, they sat together on the window seat, Aurora leaning her head on his shoulder, his arm curling around her almost without thinking. The harbor breathed quietly. The children laughed outside. The house felt warmer than ever. Aurora whispered, Jonas? Yes? This feels like the beginning of something bigger. He pressed a gentle kiss to the top of her hair. I know. And you're not afraid anymore? He smiled. I'm still afraid, he admitted. But I'm not running. She lifted her head, eyes glistening. That's enough, she said softly. For now, that's more than enough. When they stood to check on the kids, Jonas paused in the hallway. Aurora looked back at him. What is it? She asked. Jonas looked around her home, sunlight spilling across the floor, laughter echoing from the backyard. The scent of rosemary drifting slowly through the air. And then he looked at her. This, he whispered, feels like a home I don't want to leave. Aurora stepped closer, took his hand again. Then don't, she said simply. And for the first time in his adult life, Jonas believed he didn't have to.